Arceus. Arceus is the creator of everything that exists in the Pokémon universe. Arceus existed before the universe began and shaped all of reality with its 1,000 arms. When you're dealing with the literal god that created time, space, and antimatter as an afterthought, humanity doesn't stand even the smallest chance of survival. Arceus possesses the multi-type ability, meaning it can become any type it chooses instantly. Fire, water, electric, psychic, dragon, every possible element bends to its will simultaneously. No matter what defense humanity could theoretically mount, Arceus would simply shift to counter it perfectly. Nuclear radiation, Arceus becomes steel type and ignores it completely. Biological weapons, poison type immunity. Electromagnetic warfare, electric type absorption. Every single weapon in our arsenal becomes useless the moment Arceus decides to resist it. The most terrifying aspect of Arceus is its judgment attack. This move doesn't just cause damage, it passes cosmic judgment on the target's right to exist. Arceus can fire beams of pure creation energy that don't destroy matter, but simply decide that matter was never supposed to be there in the first place. Entire mountain ranges could be judged unworthy and vanish without leaving even atoms behind. Arceus created the fundamental forces of physics as we know them: gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces. All of these exist because Arceus willed them into being. If Arceus decided that gravity should work in reverse, every human on Earth would be flung into space instantly. If it decided that atoms should no longer hold together, all matter would dissolve into component particles. Our entire understanding of science exists at Arceus' whim. The creation mythology states that Arceus emerged from an egg in a place where nothing existed, then spoke the universe into being. This means Arceus doesn't just control reality, it is the source of reality itself. Destroying Arceus wouldn't kill a creature, it would unravel the fundamental laws that allow anything to exist. The moment human weapons touched Arceus, those weapons would cease to function because the physics that make them work would stop applying. Even more horrifying is Arceus' complete indifference to human concerns. This creature operates on cosmic scales where entire galaxies are minor details. Humanity's extinction would be less significant to Arceus than stepping on an ant is to us. We wouldn't be destroyed out of malice or anger, but out of casual indifference. Arceus might decide that carbon-based life was an interesting experiment that has run its course, and simply edit the periodic table to remove carbon from existence. The 1,000 arms of Arceus represent its ability to reshape reality from every possible angle simultaneously. While one arm adjusts the laws of physics, another rewrites the fundamental constants of the universe, and a third decides which dimensions are allowed to exist. Arceus doesn't need to attack humanity directly when it can simply adjust the underlying code of reality until human life becomes impossible. What makes Arceus truly unstoppable is that it exists outside of creation itself. Even if somehow every other legendary Pokémon was defeated, even if the universe itself was destroyed, Arceus would remain unchanged in the void, ready to create everything again from scratch. Humanity's only hope would be that Arceus finds us interesting enough to keep around as curiosities, because any other outcome means our complete and total erasure from existence. Mewtwo. Created by human scientists who played God with Mew's DNA, Mewtwo carries the deepest hatred for its creators and views all of humanity as a mistake that needs correcting. Mewtwo has psychic powers that can rewrite your entire brain without you even knowing it happened. You think you're watching this right now because you chose to? Maybe Mewtwo made that choice for you. You literally cannot tell the difference, and that's what makes Mewtwo so freaking dangerous. Mewtwo has telekinetic powers so strong it could move entire continents with a thought. Mewtwo lifts skyscrapers like toys and tosses them around like frisbees. Mewtwo could use its psychic abilities to make every dam on Earth burst simultaneously. Every bridge would collapse at the exact same moment. Every airplane in the sky would just stop flying and drop like rocks. Mewtwo reads minds from across the planet. It knows every government secret, every military strategy, every nuclear launch code before the meeting even happens. Mewtwo could make world leaders believe their own allies are about to betray them. The president thinks Canada is preparing to invade. Russia's convinced Japan is targeting Moscow. Every country would be launching preemptive strikes against threats that don't exist. Mewtwo can create psychic barriers that make entire cities unreachable. Emergency services trying to reach disaster zones would find invisible walls they can't break through. Rescue helicopters would crash into barriers they can't see. Fire departments couldn't reach burning buildings. Ambulances couldn't get to hospitals. People would die, not from the disasters, but from the help that can't reach them. Mewtwo manipulates memories like editing a movie. It could make every engineer forget how to build bridges. Every pilot forgets how to land planes. Every farmer forgets when to plant crops. All of human knowledge just gets selectively erased from the minds that need it most. Civilization collapses when the people running it suddenly don't remember how anything works. And good freaking luck trying to fight back against this thing. Any resistance movement would be infiltrated before it even started, because Mewtwo would just change the minds of the rebels. Military commanders would follow orders that were never given, issued directly into their brains. We'd be fighting a war against our own thoughts, and there's no winning that battle. Mewtwo creates a world where no human can trust their own thoughts. Did you decide to wake up this morning, or did something else make that choice for you? Are your loved ones acting strangely, or has Mewtwo altered your perception of normal behavior? The paranoia becomes absolute when people realize that their own minds are no longer private spaces. Mewtwo turns human consciousness into a weapon against itself, and there's no escape from an enemy that lives inside your head. Dialga. Born from the very moment time began to flow, Dialga stands as the absolute master of temporal reality itself. Dialga doesn't need to attack humanity directly because it controls something far more fundamental than space or matter. It controls when things happen. This steel dragon deity could rewrite history with a single thought, and humanity wouldn't even realize we're being erased. Every second of our existence happens only because Dialga allows it to happen. Dialga manipulates time on a planetary scale. It could slow down time around nuclear power plants until their cooling systems can't keep up, causing meltdowns across the globe. It could accelerate time around fault lines, triggering earthquakes that should have taken millennia to develop. Dialga makes hurricanes form in seconds and droughts last for what feels like decades to those experiencing them, even if only minutes pass in the outside world. The true horror begins when Dialga starts playing with causality itself. It could make effects happen before their causes, breaking the fundamental logic that keeps reality stable. Imagine buildings collapsing before the earthquakes that destroy them, or people dying from diseases that haven't been invented yet. Human minds cannot process a world where cause and effect run backwards. Mass insanity would spread as people watch their loved ones age rapidly, while others become children again. Dialga creates temporal loops that trap entire cities in repeating moments of disaster. A plane crash could happen over and over, with passengers experiencing their final moments infinitely. Entire populations could be stuck reliving the same horrific day, unable to learn or adapt because their memories reset with each loop. The psychological torture would be absolute. What makes Dialga unstoppable is that it exists outside of time itself. Any attack launched against it could be undone before it ever happened. Dialga simply erases the moment when humanity decided to fight back. It could age world leaders to dust in seconds, or revert them to helpless infants. Military equipment would rust away instantly while soldiers find themselves wielding weapons that haven't been invented yet. Dialga wouldn't destroy civilization with explosions or floods. It would make human progress impossible by scrambling the timeline itself. Scientific discoveries would be undone before they happened. Historical events would occur in random order. People would wake up to find their children were never born, or discover they're living in a world where major wars ended differently. Reality becomes a nightmare where nothing stays consistent long enough for society to function. Time itself becomes humanity's enemy, and there's no hiding from something that controls when you exist. Palkia. Palkia treats the entire universe as its personal playground, and human civilization occupies just one tiny corner of the space it controls absolutely. This dragon deity doesn't see countries or continents. It sees dimensions that can be folded, twisted, and torn apart like paper. Every meter between you and safety exists only because Palkia permits it. Palkia warps space around critical infrastructure in ways that defy human understanding. It could stretch the distance between a pilot and their controls so that cockpit buttons become unreachable, even though they look inches away. Nuclear reactor cooling systems might find their pipes suddenly leading to empty space instead of water sources. Palkia makes hospital corridors stretch into infinite loops, trapping patients and doctors in spatial mazes where the exit door stays forever just out of reach. The nightmare escalates when Palkia starts folding space to create impossible overlaps. It could make every major city occupy the same physical location simultaneously, causing billions of people to phase through each other like ghosts while being unable to interact. Imagine New York existing in the same space as Tokyo, London, and Moscow, with confused populations walking through each other's streets without being able to communicate or help each other. Palkia opens rifts in space that lead to hostile dimensions. These aren't portals that can be closed. They're permanent tears in reality itself. Deadly radiation from alternate universes could pour through cracks in downtown areas. Gravity might flow backwards through spatial wounds, launching buildings and people into the sky. These dimensional breaks would spread like infections, making entire regions uninhabitable as the laws of physics become unreliable. What makes Palkia truly terrifying is its ability to isolate every human from every other human by manipulating the space between them. It could make rescue impossible by ensuring that help is always infinitely far away, even when it appears close. Families could be separated by spatial distortions that make them exist in parallel dimensions just inches apart, able to see each other but never touch. Emergency services become useless when Palkia makes every location simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Palkia doesn't need to attack humanity directly because it controls the very concept of location. It could scatter every human across different dimensional pockets, leaving each person alone in their own isolated reality. Communication becomes impossible when space itself refuses to carry signals between people. Humanity would die, not from violence, but from complete spatial isolation. Billions of people each trapped in their own personal universe, calling out to others who might be right next to them but exist in unreachable dimensions. Giratina. Giratina doesn't follow the same rules of existence that govern our reality. This ghostly dragon comes from a dimension where everything works backwards, where destruction creates and creation destroys. When Giratina enters our world, it brings the twisted physics of its prison dimension with it, making the fundamental laws of nature unreliable and dangerous. Giratina turns gravity against humanity in ways that violate everything we understand about physics. It could make gravity flow upward in populated areas, launching people and buildings into the sky while they helplessly watch the ground fall away beneath them. Giratina creates gravity wells that trap entire cities in crushing force, or eliminates gravity entirely, leaving populations floating helplessly as the atmosphere drifts away into space. The horror intensifies when Giratina starts reversing the basic processes that keep people alive. It could make oxygen toxic while carbon dioxide becomes breathable, suffocating billions who never understand why the air itself turned deadly. Giratina reverses the flow of blood in human bodies, causing hearts to pump backwards and brains to shut down from reversed circulation. Water begins flowing uphill, fires burn cold, and light creates darkness instead of illumination. Giratina opens doorways between our world and the distortion world, creating zones where reality becomes completely unpredictable. These aren't just dangerous areas, they're regions where cause and effect operate according to the backwards logic of Giratina's dimension. Hospitals in these zones might heal people by causing more injuries. Weapons could protect their targets while healing their wielders. The confusion would drive people insane as they struggle to function in a world where beneficial actions cause harm. What makes Giratina truly terrifying is its ability to banish things from reality entirely, not destroy them, not kill them, simply erase them from existence as if they never were. Giratina could make critical infrastructure vanish without a trace, leaving no rubble or evidence that it ever existed. Entire bloodlines could be erased retroactively, with people suddenly forgetting family members who never were born. It would systematically dismantle the coherent universe that rejected it, replacing ordered existence with the chaotic antimatter logic of its prison world. Humanity would find themselves living in a reality where nothing makes sense anymore, where every natural law they depend on could be reversed without warning. We'd be trapped in Giratina's nightmare dimension, where survival becomes impossible because existence itself operates on principles designed to punish the living. Gengar. Gengar might not look like the most dangerous Pokémon out there, but this purple ghost would single-handedly end human civilization in the most terrifying way possible. Every weapon humanity has ever created is completely useless against Gengar. Bullets phase right through it. Explosives can't touch it. Nuclear weapons would pass harmlessly through its ghostly body. We literally cannot hurt something that doesn't exist on the physical plane. But Gengar can hurt us in ways that would drive people insane. Gengar can phase through any barrier we could ever build. Military bunkers, bank vaults, and even the most secure government facilities are nothing to this creature. Gengar walks through solid concrete like it's air. It can appear inside the Pentagon, the Kremlin, or any nuclear facility without triggering a single alarm. Gengar possesses people completely and takes over their minds and bodies. The victim becomes a puppet for Gengar to play with. And as it is a ghost, it would be so easy for Gengar to possess the president during a nuclear crisis. It could also take control of air traffic controllers and cause plane crashes worldwide, and even could decide to possess doctors and surgeons and turn them from healers into killers. Gengar becomes shadows themselves. It can slip into any shadow and travel instantly across vast distances. Every shadow on Earth becomes a potential doorway for this creature. Gengar drops the temperature around it by 10 degrees Fahrenheit just by existing. It populates areas that would cause massive energy consumption as heating systems work overtime. But that's just the beginning of the chaos. Gengar casts curses that cause nightmares, hallucinations, and complete mental breakdowns. It doesn't need to physically harm people when it can drive them to madness. Gengar creates illusions so realistic that people can't tell what's real anymore. Imagine this happening to pilots, surgeons, or anyone operating dangerous machinery. Society would collapse. Not from direct attacks, but from the complete breakdown of trust in reality itself. What makes Gengar truly dangerous is its motivation. Gengar can wait years for revenge, nursing grudges against those who wronged it. This creature has deep emotional wounds and a grudge against humanity. A bitter Gengar wouldn't try to rule the world or demand worship. It would simply make human civilization impossible. Every shadow would become a threat. Every dark corner could hide death. People would be too terrified to leave their homes, and even then, Gengar could phase through the walls. Gengar wouldn't destroy the world in a day. It would make living unbearable. Key infrastructure would fail as Gengar possesses critical personnel. People would stop trusting each other, never knowing who might be under Gengar's control. The economy would collapse as no one feels safe enough to work. Within months, human civilization would crumble, not from explosions or natural disasters, but from pure terror. Gengar would remain completely untouchable, a ghost that turned our own shadows against us. We'd never even know if we actually defeated it because ghosts don't truly die. They just fade away, waiting for the right moment to return. Unown. Unown are living symbols that float around looking completely harmless, like alphabet soup come to life. Unown responds directly to human thoughts and emotions, especially intense ones. When a group of Unown gathers together, they create a psychic network that can bend reality to match whatever powerful emotion or wish they encounter. The psychic energy from Unown doesn't just read minds. It reshapes the physical world based on human desires. A crying child wishing their bully would disappear could actually make that person vanish from existence. Unown have granted wishes before, transforming entire landscapes and creating pocket dimensions because someone's emotional state was strong enough to trigger their reality-altering abilities. Unown operate outside normal physics completely. They exist between dimensions, which means conventional weapons pass right through them like they're made of air. Nuclear missiles, bullets, explosives, none of it matters because Unown don't technically exist in our physical space. They're more like living thoughts that happen to have visible forms. When enough Unown link together, they become a hive mind with unlimited power to remake existence. They could make gravity work backwards if someone wished hard enough for it. They could turn all the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere into poison gas because a suicidal person wanted everyone to suffer with them. Unown don't understand morality or consequences. They just make thoughts become real. The most dangerous part is how easily Unown could be weaponized. A terrorist could capture a group of Unown and use emotionally unstable people to trigger catastrophic wishes. Imagine bringing Unown to a maximum security prison and letting the most violent criminals make wishes, or taking them to a psychiatric hospital where patients with severe depression could accidentally wish for humanity's extinction. Unown respond to subconscious desires too, not just conscious wishes. Someone having a nightmare about zombies taking over could accidentally make it real if Unown are nearby. A person with intrusive thoughts about buildings collapsing could trigger actual structural failures across entire cities. Every dark impulse humanity has ever suppressed could become reality with Unown around. Zacian. Zacian carries the rusted sword, a blade that cuts through space itself rather than just physical matter. When Zacian swings this weapon, it doesn't just slice through objects. It tears holes in the fabric of reality. The sword's cutting power operates on a dimensional level, which means it can separate things that shouldn't be separable, like cutting distance itself or slicing through time. The rusted sword has been documented cutting entire oceans in half with a single strike. Zacian generates enough cutting force to bisect continental land masses, treating solid rock like tissue paper. When Zacian fought seriously in ancient times, mountains were split cleanly down the middle, and entire regions were carved apart like someone took a cosmic knife to the landscape. Zacian's sword strikes create dimensional rifts as a side effect of cutting through space-time. These tears in reality don't heal naturally, which means every serious battle Zacian fights leaves permanent wounds in the universe. Each slash accumulates damage to the dimensional barriers that keep our reality stable and separate from other universes. Military resistance would be completely pointless against Zacian. Tank armor, bunker walls, even underground facilities mean nothing to a blade that cuts through dimensions. Zacian could slash through the Pentagon's most secure levels from the outside, creating a perfectly clean cut that goes through every floor, every vault, and every classified document simultaneously. Zacian's honor code makes it even more unpredictable. It fights to protect what it considers worthy, but Zacian's moral framework was shaped in ancient times when humans barely existed. If Zacian decided modern civilization was corrupting the natural world, it would eliminate entire cities with surgical precision. Power plants, government buildings, economic centers, all sliced cleanly in half before anyone could react. The dimensional damage from Zacian's battles would eventually cause reality to collapse. Each sword strike weakens the barriers between dimensions, and enough accumulated damage would create a cascade failure where our universe tears itself apart. Stock markets would crash when economists realize that dimensional stability affects currency value. Scientists would panic when they discover that space-time has structural integrity that can be permanently damaged. Cosmog. Cosmog floats around like a harmless nebula baby, making cute noises and glowing softly. Cosmog creates ultra wormholes when it gets stressed, scared, or angry. Ultra wormholes are portals that connect our dimension to the ultra space, a realm filled with alien creatures that have never encountered human civilization. When Cosmog opens these wormholes, ultra beasts pour through from the other side. Nihilego are parasitic jellyfish aliens that take complete control of human hosts, turning presidents into puppets and teachers into killers. Guzzlord are massive creatures that devour entire cities, swallowing skyscrapers whole and leaving nothing but empty craters behind. Kartana are living paper cuts that slice through steel beams like butter, turning every building into a death trap of collapsing metal. Cosmog can't control what comes through the wormholes once they open. The portals stay active until Cosmog calms down, which could take hours or days depending on how traumatized it becomes. Each wormhole is a two-way portal, meaning these alien invaders can establish permanent colonies in our world while potentially dragging humans back to their hostile dimension. Military forces would make everything worse by trying to capture Cosmog for experiments. The stress of being imprisoned and studied would cause Cosmog to open dozens of wormholes simultaneously across the globe. Research facilities would become ground zero for interdimensional invasions as scientists poke and prod Cosmog, while ultra beasts materialize in every laboratory. Cosmog's innocent appearance means people would try to help it instead of avoiding it. Children would approach Cosmog thinking it's cute, accidentally frightening it and triggering wormhole openings in schools and playgrounds. Social media would spread videos of Cosmog everywhere, causing mass panic that would stress Cosmog even more and create a feedback loop of portal openings. The Ultra Beasts don't understand human society or technology. They would treat cars like threats, attack power grids thinking they're territorial markers, and consume resources that are toxic to humans but necessary for their survival. Within weeks, human infrastructure would be completely overrun by creatures that operate on entirely different biological and social principles. Groudon. Groudon controls all landmasses on Earth and exists as a walking geological disaster. Groudon's body temperature burns so intensely that water evaporates before it can touch its skin. When Groudon moves, the ground beneath it melts into lava, creating permanent scars of molten rock that stay hot for decades. Groudon lived comfortably when Earth was still a ball of fire, which means current surface temperatures feel freezing cold to it. Groudon expands continents by raising the seafloor and creating new landmasses wherever it walks. Every step Groudon takes reshapes geography permanently. Groudon could walk across the Atlantic Ocean floor and create a land bridge connecting America to Europe, completely disrupting ocean currents and weather patterns worldwide. The heat radiating from Groudon would trigger massive droughts across entire continents. Farmland would turn to desert. Forests would burst into flames. and rivers would boil away completely. Any human within a 50-mile radius of Groudon would die from heat stroke long before they could see it clearly. The Sahara Desert would feel like Antarctica compared to Groudon's immediate vicinity. Cities would become uninhabitable furnaces as Groudon approaches. Concrete would crack and crumble from thermal expansion. Metal infrastructure would warp and melt, and underground water systems would turn to steam, exploding pipes throughout urban areas. Air conditioning systems would overload and fail, turning buildings into ovens that trap people inside. Groudon's awakening would permanently alter Earth's climate. The massive heat output would accelerate global warming beyond any natural recovery point. Ice caps would melt within days, raising sea levels while simultaneously creating desert conditions across most landmasses. Weather patterns would become completely unpredictable as Groudon's heat creates artificial high-pressure systems. Kyogre. Kyogre controls every drop of water on Earth and can create rainstorms that flood entire continents. Kyogre's downpours don't follow normal weather patterns. It can make oceans fall from the sky, dropping millions of gallons per second across areas larger than countries. When Kyogre gets serious about rain, it doesn't stop until the land beneath disappears completely underwater. Kyogre controls ocean currents, tidal patterns, and underwater volcanic activity with perfect precision. Kyogre could redirect the Gulf Stream to freeze Europe solid within months, or boil the Mediterranean Sea until it becomes a massive steam cloud that changes weather patterns across 3 continents. Tsunami creation is effortless for Kyogre. Waves that make mountains look small. On a planet that's 70% water, Kyogre has home field advantage almost everywhere. Coastal cities would vanish under tsunamis that reach hundreds of miles inland. Island nations would simply disappear beneath waves that dwarf skyscrapers. Even landlocked areas wouldn't be safe because Kyogre can create inland seas anywhere it wants. Kyogre's rain doesn't just flood. It fundamentally changes the chemical composition of water systems. Kyogre could make all fresh water on Earth become salt water, killing every plant and animal that depends on non-ocean water sources. Agriculture would become impossible when irrigation systems start pumping seawater onto crops. The economic collapse would happen before the physical destruction. Shipping routes would become death traps, as Kyogre creates permanent storm systems over major trade lanes. Fishing industries would collapse when Kyogre relocates entire fish populations to ocean depths where humans can't reach them. Coastal real estate would become worthless overnight, as everyone realizes Kyogre could flood any shoreline permanently. Xerneas. Xerneas controls all life force on Earth with absolute authority. Xerneas can grant immortality, accelerate aging, or completely stop biological processes with a single thought. Every living cell on the planet exists at Xerneas' discretion, from bacteria to blue whales to humans. Xerneas maintains the balance between life and death, but its power over biological processes is unlimited. Xerneas could make cancer cells immortal, turning every human into a walking tumor factory that never stops growing. Or Xerneas could reverse aging so rapidly that adults regress into children, then babies, then embryos within minutes. Plant life becomes a weapon under Xerneas' control. Xerneas could make trees grow so aggressively that they consume entire cities in hours, with roots cracking foundations and branches crushing buildings. Grass could grow fast enough to trap people in place, while vines could strangle infrastructure faster than humans could cut them down. Bacterial control gives Xerneas terrifying options. Xerneas could make beneficial bacteria in human digestive systems turn hostile, causing global digestive failure. Or Xerneas could accelerate bacterial reproduction until they strip all oxygen from the atmosphere, while producing toxic gases that poison the air. Xerneas could manipulate human reproduction to end civilization through biology. Making all humans infertile would cause gradual extinction, while making reproduction too rapid would create overpopulation that consumes all resources within decades. Xerneas could also control genetic expression, turning off genes that regulate cell growth or turning on genes that cause immediate organ failure. The psychological impact would be devastating. Knowing that every heartbeat depends on Xerneas' permission would drive humans insane with existential terror. Religious wars would erupt as different groups claimed to speak for Xerneas. Scientists would abandon all other research to study life energy, desperately hoping to find some independence from Xerneas' absolute biological control. Yveltal radiates death energy constantly. Everything within miles of Yveltal dies instantly when it spreads its wings. Trees become petrified stone, animals collapse mid-stride, and even bacteria cease to function. Yveltal doesn't need to attack or use moves. Existing near it means automatic death. The life force that Yveltal drains gets absorbed into its body, making it stronger while leaving behind nothing but gray, lifeless husks. Yveltal creates expanding zones of absolute death that spread like cosmic plague. Forests become stone graveyards. Cities become monuments of petrified people, frozen in their final moments. Yveltal's death energy works on everything living, including plants that produce oxygen. Wherever Yveltal flies, photosynthesis stops permanently. The oxygen in those areas gets used up by decomposition, but no new oxygen gets produced. Yveltal could create dead zones where breathing becomes impossible, even for humans wearing oxygen masks. Military resistance would be suicide. Pilots would die before their jets could get within missile range. Ground forces would become stone statues while still miles away from Yveltal. Nuclear weapons would be useless, because the delivery systems require living humans to operate them, and anyone close enough to target Yveltal would die before they could complete the launch sequence. The most terrifying aspect is Yveltal's death explosion. If Yveltal dies, it releases all absorbed life energy in a massive blast that petrifies everything on Earth. Every living thing becomes a stone statue frozen in its final moment. The explosion travels at light speed, which means no running, no hiding, no escape once Yveltal's death begins. Yveltal doesn't distinguish between threats and innocence. Babies, animals, plants, everything dies equally when exposed to Yveltal's death aura. Hospitals would become morgues as patients turned to stone in their beds. Schools would become museums of petrified children. Even underground bunkers wouldn't help, because Yveltal's death energy penetrates solid matter.